Hey, we've all been told at some point in our life, actions speak louder than words. Hands up if you've been told that before in your life. Yeah, most of us have. Actions speak louder than words, and that's true. I believe that's true when it comes to first impressions. That's true when it comes to meeting someone like a stranger or an acquaintance, that actions speak louder than words. But I'm not sure that within our close relationships, in your marriages, in your relationship with your kids, in your relationship with your in-laws, with your close friends, I'm not so sure that statement rings true, that action speaks louder than words. Because I believe that the more intimate the relationship, the louder, or to the point of this series, the weightier your words actually become. And their capacity, the closer your relationship is with someone, has a greater capacity to leave a mark for good in that person's life or for bad. The closer you are in your relationship, the weightier your words become. The closer you are, you have the ability to build up that person or destroy that person's confidence or self-esteem. You have the ability to encourage that person or discourage. You have the opportunity to inspire, or you have the opportunity to wound. Words in our relationships, you guys know this, words are powerful. Words leave a mark. And we have to be so aware of the words that are coming out of our mouths. I mean, words are so powerful in our relationships that even words that are left unsaid leave a mark. Even words that you wanted to hear but you didn't hear leave a mark. Unsaid words can impact the trajectory of someone's life. I've never heard anyone quote to me what a neighbor or a coworker never said, because the words aren't as heavy in those sort of shallower relationships. But for close relationships, father-son relationships, spousal relationships, I mean, when I used to work in school, there were kids that would come to me and talk about the words that were left unsaid. I was doing a leadership camp with the school that I worked at a few years ago, and everything sort of funnels through and brings you to this point. It's the point where it's meant to have like a huge heart impact in the kids' lives. And we're talking about heroes. And I was a small group leader with a group of maybe 10 year 12 students, mixture of boys and girls, so 17-year-olds really. And we were talking about heroes and how heroes, people that influenced you in your life, they have the ability to shape who you've become today. And with this, I had one particular boy. He was like an all-Queensland cricket player. He was a bit of a goofball, and I made it my goal to connect with this kid over the week that we were with him. And it came to the hero moment, and he said, I don't have a hero. I haven't had someone speak into my life positively. There are so many words in my life that were left unsaid. And so I just felt this little nudge in my spirit that I needed to say something. And I said, his name was Brad, I'm so proud of you. You're an amazing kid. You're going to be a role model. You don't have heroes in your life, but you are going to be a hero for someone else. His girlfriend came to me the next day and said that he was just up all night crying, because he had never had someone speak those words to him. He had never had a role model encourage him, build him up. There were words just left unsaid. The words that were left unsaid were, I love you. The words that were left unsaid are, I'm proud of you. If this elicits an emotional response or not, nothing underscores the significance of words than the fact that words left unsaid can change the trajectory of a person's life. Words carry weight. Words carry weight. Words spoken and words left unsaid. And I'll just prove my point a little bit more here. Have you ever been crushed by someone's words? Let's go back to high school. Maybe you're in high school right now, but let's go back to high school and you had a crush on someone. You were into this person and they said, let's just be friends. And I don't want to be friends. Oh, I see you as my brother. I don't want you to see me. I want to kiss you, right? I don't want you to see me as your brother. No, the words have the ability to really leave a mark. And if that has ever happened to you, even when you're a kid or in high school, you probably remember that person. You probably remember where it was, what it smelled like, because it left such an imprint in your life. Our lives, whether you realize it or not, have been shaped and morphed by the words spoken to us. The words like directly to us, the words that have been spoken over us, right? The words that sort of, this is who you are and this is all you'll ever be. The words that have been spoken at us, maybe more confrontational. And the words that have been spoken not to you, but the words that have been spoken about you. And these words shaped your childhood. You know this. They continue to shape your marriage. They shape your work environment. They shape your confidence. They shape the view that you have of you. They shape our confidence and the person that we see looking back to us in the mirror. And while we're quick to recognize the words that other people have shared to us, how significant they are, how much they've had an imprint in our lives, we're quick to recognize other people's words. We're often a little bit slower to recognize the weight and the power of the words that we have to other people. It's quick to realize the words that they have spoken to us, but we often don't think about how our words have impacted those that we say we love most. Your words carry weight in more ways than you can imagine. They carry weight specifically in your close, intimate relationships. In your relationships with your kids, in your relationship with your spouse, with your parents, with your brothers, with your sisters. Our words leave a mark. Now, here's the good news. If you are not a Jesus follower and you're watching online or in this room, really, I don't have any authority to tell you how to live your life, and you choose to use what words you want when you want. But I will say, if you choose to apply the things that we are talking about over these series, it is going to make your relationships better. It's going to make your marriage better. It's going to make the relationship that you have with your kids better. But it's optional for you. If you're a Jesus follower, however, you've submitted your life to the lordship of Christ. This is not optional. These are instructions that Jesus gives on how we should follow, how we should live our lives. So in this series, we're going to unpack these dynamics at work in every conversation that we have with people that we care about most, with our family, with our friends, with our coworkers, and our employees. So we're going to talk about three dynamics that determine what people hear, regardless of what we say. And we've all been on the receiving end of all three of the things that we're going to talk about in this series, which means it should be easy to keep these in the forefront of our mind. It should be easy for us to really be strategic and aware of the words that are coming out of our mouths, but we don't. We don't. So today we'll unpack the first one, but first here's a little bit of an incentive. Like I said, what we're talking about today are like Jesus has marching orders. It's baked into what it means to follow Jesus. And in the letter that Paul writes to a church in Ephesus, he unpacks this a little bit about Jesus's new covenant command. Jesus' instructions to his followers, Jesus' instructions to you and to me. And the way we put it, sort of talking about here, is in our relationships, when you're going to have conversations with someone, answering this question: what does love require of me? In all the words that we speak, in all of our relationships, in the words that are coming out of our mouths, answering the question before you say them: what does love require of me? Here's how Paul puts it. Follow God's example, therefore, as dearly loved children, and walk in the way of love. And this sounds so like romantic and passive and sort of airy-fairy, like, oh, walk in the way of love, right? Just love one another. And maybe you think, John, this is just watering down the gospel. This is not deep enough for me. Don't you know how mature of a Christian I am? Right? This is a bold statement. If we understand what it looks like to love one another, and Jesus takes that treat others the way you want to be treated to such another level, because when he's talking to his disciples, he says, no, it's not the way that you want to be treated. I want you to love one another the way that I have loved you. I want you to have a sacrificial level of love. I want you to put others before you. Do you remember, guys, when I knelt before you and I washed your feet? I humbled myself. I put you above me. I want you to love one another the way that I have loved you. And this is such a bold statement. This is so bold that it changed the trajectory of the world. This statement changed the way the world lived. The way that we loved, it changed the first century people. It changed the world. And just remember that we get to choose whether or not we follow Jesus, right? That's an option, and I would really like to persuade you or convince you or encourage you, if you haven't taken that step, to look at what does it look like to follow Jesus. A great place to start is in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which are the Gospels, which are the biographies of the life of Jesus, and it goes into the words that he said, why he came, and how he lived his life. If you're interested on who Jesus is and how you can follow him, start in the Gospels, which is on the second half of your book. So we get to choose whether or not we follow Jesus. We do not get to choose what it looks like, reacts like, or sounds like. We get to choose whether or not we want to follow Jesus, but we do not get to choose what it looks like, reacts like, or sounds like. Jesus didn't leave that option open to us. He prescribed and he modeled what it looks like. In Paul's words, follow God's example, therefore, as dearly loved children, and walk in the way of love, just as Christ loved us. Just as Christ loved us. Jesus' demonstration of love took everyone's breath away. It took his life away. It took your sin away. His demonstration of love took everyone's breath away, it took his life away, and it took your sin away. It's the dynamic that launched the movement and would change the world. Follow God's example, therefore, as dearly loved children, and walk in the way of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us. If you want to know what the way love acts, if you want to know the way love acts, reacts, and sounds like, then the first place you got to start is following Jesus through the Gospels. Paul applies this to the words we choose. He applies this principle to the words that we choose. Here's what he says the way of love sounds like. He says, do not let any unwholesome word come out of your mouths. Do not let any unwholesome word, and that word unwholesome here, it means stinky. So great way to tell your kids, right? Don't let any stinky words come out of your mouth. Don't let any distasteful words come out of your mouth. Don't let any offensive words come out of your mouth. View your mouth as a gate. View your mouth as a gate and stand guard so that when the stinky words or the hurtful words rush to the gate, you can not let them through. When the stinky words are about to come out, have a lockable gate that you say, no words, you're going to come back in, because you know that once they go out, you cannot get them back in, can you? As much as you would want to, you can't get them back in. And we could stop right here. Some of you are like, yes, please, John, let's end the sermon. Let's go get a coffee. We could just end the sermon right here. But we got a little bit to go. If we can work on this, it's going to change your relationships. If you can be aware of the words and not let stinky words come out, offensive words, distasteful words come out, if you can work on this, it's going to be fantastic. Somebody, think about this, somebody in your life is going to be so happy you're deciding to work on this. Somebody that is close to you is going to be so happy that you're deciding to not let these stinky words come out. They would like the words that have been left unsaid to come out. So that's the negative statement that Paul says. But Paul gives us a way forward. He gives us a way forward. And he says, this is what love sounds like. but only words so don't let any unwholesome word come out of your mouth, but only words that are good for building others up according to whose needs? Their needs. Building them up according to their needs. Again, it sounds soft and maybe a little bit unproductive. Like, can you really raise kids like that? Can you really have performance reviews at work like that? You can't just say, hey, would you mind coming to work occasionally? Can you really lead this way? Paul's point was not just to be nice. His point is to use words to build. Your words are like building blocks. Use your words to build other people up according to not your needs. Oh, I just got to get this off my chest. No, that's all about you. According to their needs. But only words that are good for building others up according to their needs. Your words are like building materials on the construction site. And believe me, I don't know much about construction sites. I'm not very good with my hands, but I know people. And your words are like building blocks on the construction site. The conversation. When you have a conversation with someone and you leave the construction site, not the metaphorical construction site, okay? When you leave the conversation, they should be better for it. They should be better for it, for having a conversation. For that to happen, what do we have to do? We have to be students. We have to be students. We have to listen and understand to tailor our words to their needs. We have to listen in the conversations. How many of you have conversations with people and the whole time they're talking, you're just thinking, what am I going to say next? What am I going to say next? How am I going to win the argument? Or you're just really nervous and you're like, okay, I got to have a speaking topic to continue this conversation or else I'm just going to have to walk away. Oh, that's my kid. I'm going to go follow my kid, right? Maybe it's just me. But we have to listen in our conversations and tailor our words to whose needs? To their needs. And this is where I struggle, because maybe it's just me, but I'm confident that what they need to hear is what I need to say. What they need to hear is actually what I need to say. I'm confident because I feel so much better after I've said it. And I don't understand why they don't feel better too, right? I feel better. I said what I needed to say. Oh, because it was about my needs. The truth is, most of us are more dialed into what we need to say than what others need to hear. And sometimes we hesitate to say what they need to hear because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. And we fear rejection, right? We fear, what if I say the wrong thing? What about me? What if I? And we play the what if I game in our mind, and before long it's just about me. It's just about us and what our needs are, not what their needs are. I select my words with me in mind. We tailor our words to what suits us in the moment. And all conversations quickly become just about us. I say what's most helpful to me according to my needs, which is fine if I care more about me than I do you. And Jesus didn't make it about him. Jesus never made it about him. He always made it about others. And he made it about others, and he invites us to follow him. He makes it about others, all of his conversations, all his relationships, he makes it about others, and then he encourages us and leads us to do the same with our words, to follow his example. The really good word to put it is like we are his apprentices. He's showing us how to live our lives. He's showing us how to have our relationships with one another. And he leads us to do the same with our words. Paul concludes. He says, but only words that are good for building others up according to their needs that. This is the purpose or the result. Paul states the win, and he states the goal. It may benefit those who listen. But only words that are good for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Our words should be beneficial and leave other people better off and leave other people built up. Our words should be like a gift that they get to unwrap and get so excited, like build up. You know those people that when you leave the conversation, you just feel you've got a pep in your step. You feel like you're built up. You feel like you're better off because they made the conversation more about you than they did about them. And now, obviously, there are times in our life where building blocks have to be hard conversations. There are things that can't just go left unsaid. There are things that need to be said to help build that person up that are actually hard conversations. And we need to hear those hard things too. And when we're having those conversations, don't you know that the person that you're having that tough conversation with they know that if you are sharing that information for their benefit or your benefit. They know whether it's where the intention is coming from, which is why the words we choose, intent, is as important as content. The intention behind why we're saying the words is as important as the words that we are saying. And it's hard to receive difficult words or content when we suspect somebody's intention is not really with our intentions in mind. We can receive or accept them when we know that they have our best interests in mind, and same as vice versa. It's easier to receive constructive criticism when you trust the source that constructive criticism is coming from. But if you don't trust the source, maybe you've experienced this before, if you don't trust the source, we put those defense walls up. And as Jesus followers, it's really important to get this right. I'll just read this whole thing again. Do not let any unwholesome words come out of your mouths, but only words that are good for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. And that's what following Jesus sounds like. And it brings me to the first of three dynamics in conversations with people that are closest to us. They are things that we should consider as we expect others to. These three dynamics are things that we should consider because we expect other people to consider these things too. Words are not equally weighted. Words are not equally weighted. Some words, more specifically, negative words, weigh way more than positive words. Negative words weigh way more than positive words. Can we say that together? Negative words weigh way more than positive words. One more time, because I know a few of you didn't say it. Negative words weigh way more than positive words. And depending on which study you read, they have this ratio to the amount of positive words it takes to counterbalance a negative word. And it's talking about like your coworker relationships or your casual marketplace relationships. And they say 5 positives to 1 negative is about the scale that it takes. So 5 positive words weighs the same as 1 negative word. Now, I think that there's no scientific background to this, but I believe that in our relationships, in our marriages, in our relationship with our kids, it's probably more like 30 to 1. And I think that's true. I think it probably takes 30 positive words to every 1 negative word that we share to those that we love most. Why? Because our words carry weight. Our words have the impact to change the trajectory of someone's life. Growing up, I imagine you don't remember much of anything that you said to your parents. Or maybe you don't even remember some of the things that your parents said to you, or a lot of the things that your parents said to you. But there are things that they said to you as well that you'll never forget. You probably don't remember what you said to them, but there are words that have spoken to you that you'll probably never forget. And I'm assuming that most of those words are probably the negative things, right? All the good advice that began with, son, never forget. All of the positive encouragement, which there probably was in your life, all of the building you up, which I'm sure there was. I'm sure you don't remember all of those positive things or whatever comes after, son, never forget. But the negatives, the critical, the cynical, the comparison, I'm sure you remember some of those. Because the negative words weigh so much more than the positive ones. Your words, my words, have the power to wound. And we are responsible for the damage that we do with our words. We're responsible with how we steward our words and how they impact the people that are around us. And obviously, we're all going to slip up. I'm not expecting any of us to leave this place and be perfect with our words. We're all going to slip up, and we're all probably going to wound people that we love. The only way to avoid that is just to die early, right? Because it's going to happen. I'm not trying to set the bar way up here because it's not possible. So it's imperative that we load up on the positive. And I actually want to challenge you. I want to encourage, not just encourage, I want you to try to tally it this week with your spouse, with your kids, with people that are closest to you. Be really aware of the words that come out of your mouth. And let's say a negative word or that stinky word does come out. All right, you got 30 positives to go. Right? We got nervous chuckle, but I actually want us to do this because our words are so important. And the people around you really want you to do this. Your kids really want you to do this. Your spouse really wants you to do this. Your teachers, the kids in your class, we're about to get back into school, they want us to do this. Let's load up on the positive. Because loading up on the positive is how we maintain influence and ensures that the constructive criticism can be received and acted on. Because if you don't have the money in the bank to give the constructive criticism, then it's just going to come as criticism. But if you can load up on the positive with your kids and with your spouse of oh, hey, honey, I noticed. Thank you so much for doing the dishes. Not taking that for granted. Or, hey, Will, he's doing amazing handstands. Will, I love those handstands. You're such an amazing, gifted kid. Right? Let's load up on the positive so that when there are times to build other people up with constructive criticism, you've got the cash in the bank to be able to do that, and it will actually be received well. Dads, if you're a father of few words, if you're a man of few words, I can almost guarantee that most of the words that do trickle out are negative. Because the only time that we are speaking is when things are going wrong, when your kids are doing something wrong, when your spouse has done something wrong. We have to be really attentive. We have to be really aware. We need to adjust our ratio. And be proactive. If you're naturally a quiet person, be proactive to call out the positives. Be proactive to call out the best in the people around you so that ratio can be back. We've got to balance it with 50-1. Positives to negative. You're familiar with portion control, especially right now, New Year's resolutions. I'm sure no one has those. Should I be bold? Anybody made a New Year's resolution and didn't quite follow through? Everyone's still on them. Okay, we got one honest person. Thank you. Anyhow, portion control. But this is proportion control. And both require self-control. And just as we wrap up, sarcasm, which is ingrained in the Australian culture, sarcasm won't make your kids tougher. Sarcasm won't make your relationship stronger. It will make it tougher for you to connect later down in the road. Sarcasm is not going to build one another up. Let's load one another up with positive, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's challenging for you, even if you're an introvert, let's load one another up. And let's remember that words are not equally weighted. Words, next slide please, are not equally weighted. Negatives weigh way more than positive. Negatives are necessary at times, but bounce off and wound if they aren't the exception. Let's get that ratio to 30-1. Have you ever heard the saying that having too much of something good turns out to be bad? I've heard that before, and I'm sure in some arenas of life that's true, but I can't think of many. And too much, I've never heard, I'm not a counselor, but I'm sure no one's found the root of their problems back to too much encouragement. Right? I'm sure no one's problems in their life comes from too much encouragement. So don't worry about overdoing it. Let's overdose on the encouraging. Let's overdose on being positive to one another, on loving one another, of filtering the stinky words, on being constructive and encouraging, so that we can pave the way to those tougher conversations that we all know we need to have. Let's put enough cash in the bank so that when you have those conversations that are designed to build one another up, that it actually does that and it doesn't just leave a wound. And I've got 2 questions that I want you to take super seriously. Where do you have work to do? When it comes to your words and the weight of your words, where do you have work to do? And this last question, for me, was a gut punch. Who hopes you'll get to work soon? Where do you have work to do? And who hopes you'll get to that work soon? As Paul says, don't let any unwholesome words come out of your mouths, but only words that are good for building others up according not to your needs, but to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. This is what it sounds like to follow Jesus. And we'll pick it up there next time for part 2 of our series, The Weight of Your Words. God, we thank you for this time and that you give us the ability for free will. And that you led by example on what it looks like, sounds like, and reacts like to love one another, God. And it's our desire to follow in your footsteps, that we, as you have loved us, that we will love one another, God. Let our words be encouraging building blocks according to the needs of people around us. God, I pray that you would be bringing those people to mind, and I'm sure it is already there, of who hopes we get to work soon. There are specific people in our lives that we need to be really attentive of how we speak to them, God, and continue to remind us of that this week. Pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Hey, so good to have you all for the first service of the year. We can't wait to get to know you a little bit more in the cafe. If you do have kids at Kids Rock, so that we can relieve our team, could you grab your kids before we have all our amazing conversations? And other than that, we will see you next week. The key